Starting off the video from a quote from Captain Deadeye.
Gork loves me, and Ork thinks I is the best. No puny Umis is going to kill me, not when the greenest gods in the galaxy is watching me.
Welcome back, this is Spruce and Studs to another action figure review video, and obviously because you heard me speak in Orklish, as well as the thumbnail in the picture, we're going to be reviewing yet another Ork action figure that was released not too long ago from McFarlane, because, well, McFarlane currently is the only one that manufactures all these Orky action figures, which is the big guy right here, specifically the Ork Big Mek. And it is, again, another very, very chonky action figure, in which let's waste no time and delve right into. All right, folks, we have the Big Mek in front of you. And sorry about the glare. There's really nothing I can do about it, as plastic does a great job of reflecting light. So let's get to the unboxing. Opening the big boy up. There we go. All right, we have the Big Mek that is in front of you that has been newly freed from its plastic casing. So let's take a look at the backpack, which has a bunch of wonky, orky things on the back of it, which I love. It is a messy looking thing, which is exactly 100% what it should be because, well, it's the Orks. So the first thing that I'm looking at right now is that there is warping, probably due to the packaging. As you see over here, this is likely supposed to be semi-straight. I know that in these instances, you can probably dip this into hot water and then slowly straighten this thing back so that it stands up straight. And this, I believe this, what you call like a Tesla coil or something like that, is also kind of bent as well. So looking at the paint quality over here, it looks like the painting is fairly clean in terms of keeping within the boundaries, because I believe that these pieces are probably painted and assembled separately and then put them together. So as you can see here, these Tesla coils, actually there's no bleed whatsoever from the copper part to the dark gray parts and dark gray parts to the silver part. Now there are some, again, painting issues here where you can see the coil at the top of it. The paint did not cover up this part, and it's a little sparse down here as well. And then because this is also one piece right here, you get some overspray from the red onto the copper kind of color. But in terms of that, that's pretty much it with regards to the painting. There's actually a lot more color than I would normally expect on this action figure backpack. And I'm actually pretty impressed that there is quite a lot of color, because typically McFarlane action figures limit themselves with the amount of color that they have. All right, I guess that's enough on this jury-rigged Tesla coil. Let's move on to the chunky Ork. So starting off in usual fashion, we will focus in on the Ork's face. And let's take a look at this guy's face. And it looks like he is able to look questioningly at you, or look questioning at me as I do the review. It's like, I disagree with you and your assessments of me. Anyways, looking at the lens of this, I'm actually rather impressed because, like, yes, there are some small defects, but it's actually quite spot on. The red of the lens actually is almost quite center. There is a slight bleed over here, but it really looks pretty good in my opinion for something that big. Although, one of the glaring things I'm going to have to point out, though, is this mold line over here. Unfortunately, this mold line is right in front of this guy's chin, which is a very prominent position to be in, which kind of sucks. I'm sure that you can go in afterwards and try to scalp or try to smooth this place out. But in terms of the painting-wise, it actually looks pretty good. Yes, there is some bleed on the silver onto the green of the flesh. If there are any painting issues or defects, you can just blame it on Orkiness. So looking at the Ork's flesh, though, I think it's actually really nice because this is quite different from the Ork knob with the kill saws, because there's actually a lot of differentiation here. You can see some shading as well as some highlighting. There is some issues with the gums here that's supposed to be pink, where it's actually green, and then the teeth are supposed to be also a little bit more, I guess, flesh colored rather than this green color over here. But again, it's Ork. It's all good. just because of that. Now let's take a look at what I believe is the combi Scorcher. Please correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube. I'm not a 100% orc connoisseur, but I can definitely get by. So with the combi Scorcher, you definitely have a lot of highlighting that's going on, and it's super uneven. As you can see here, the dry brushing is very rough all around these edges. And again, I'll say this time and time and again. I think that this roughness actually suits the orcs very well. If this was clean and crisp, I actually would have an issue with it because that's just not how the orcs operate. This is exactly how the orcs operate. It's janky, it's crazy, but it's 100% functional in the end. Well, maybe, because there's some of the stuff that's completely random. But regardless, this looks good in my opinion for an orc. So looking at the shooter portion of it, I don't know exactly what's going on over here. I'm not sure if it's like a defect, but it looks like there might be some sort of like clear coat that ran too much. I'm not 100% sure because I think this should be more silver. Then looking at the Scorcher itself, there is some, I guess I could look at some plastic defects here. It's a lot of rough warping over here. The highlighting is really rough here as well. And there is some bleed that goes on from the brass to the gray part of this orc action figure. But again, it's fine. But regardless, very orky. And I just want to test this out. I think this should just pop out. Oh, there you go. This pops out just like the Ork Big Mek. And you can just attach it on like so. Now this is a beefy claw over here. So in terms of painting wise, it's still very janky and very uneven. And I will have to repeat myself again. This doesn't really bother me that much because this is how it's supposed to be. So you got some bleed from the red onto the gunmetal gray over here. And then you have some red over here on the white. Some very uneven highlights over here as you see. So one thing I would like to point out that I was noticing here is that you have some bleed from the green onto the gray right here. That is actually something that I will have to point out that I'm not really much of a fan of. Despite orcs being that janky, I don't think the flesh color should actually blend into the gray parts of the action figure. And then looking at the chest piece, there is plenty of orky iconography here. I really like the big tooth that's here, as well as these icons that designate this as a Big Mek, which is really cool. You get this nice textured look with the lower half of the body. McFarlane does a very good job of this, and I'll have to say this texture is actually really cool. It looks as rough and as janky as an orc is supposed to be, and it completely matches the whole entire aesthetic of an orc. You have these patches over here. These mold lines match the entire aesthetic of the action figure as well. All right, let's look at the articulation. So you're not going to get that much articulation in the head. I'm going to assume that it just rotates, well, kind of poltergeisty. Let's see how much we can rotate this in terms of angle wise. You could probably do, yep, as you saw there, you can do it 360 degrees. Around the shoulder joint, it should be 360 degrees as well. The elbow joint, however, should be restricted to this 90-degree angle, if not a little bit less. But let's take a look. It looks like it's a little less than 90 degrees, mainly because this piston over here blocks the full range of motion. With regards to the torso, you probably have 360 degrees of motion over here. You can actually see the inner workings a little bit of the action figure right here. And as you twist them around, again, 360 degree motion around the torso. And then with the legs themselves, the motion is fairly restricted with all this extra armor that is added onto the orc. It is a very stiff action figure, so you're not really able to get that much range of motion. So I would say this is less than the 45 degrees that you're able to get with this. With regards to the knees, let's take a look at it. The knees, you're able to bend a little less than a 90-degree angle over here, so you can bend, this is as far back as you can bend it. You can kick it out as much as this. So this is very restricted. And then with the ankle area, 360-degree rotation, and then you are able to pivot this back and forth for probably added stabilization when you're trying to pose this action figure. In terms of the ankle, it also bends forward just a little bit, bends back just a little bit. So the only thing that we need to do now is just to attach the backpack. The backpack does not attach very well to the back of the Ork, so it looks as such, and you put it in as such. And as you can see, the backpack is already in, but if I jiggle around like that, the backpack just falls out, which is kind of a disappointment to me that it doesn't fit as snug as it should. All right, folks, that is the action figure completely reviewed, and let me give you my final thoughts. All right, what do I actually think of Mr. Chonky Big Mek over here? Well, in terms of Orky fashion, it actually exemplifies, well, Ork really, really well. I really like the combi Scorcher as well as the Power Claw. It is very well represented with how janky but functional the Orky lineup is. And I also really like how big and chunky this particular Ork is as well. The painting, in my opinion, is spotty at best. But again, as I said before, and I'm going to repeat myself again, the spotty painting you can definitely attribute to just Orkiness. And that's how just Orks are. They don't really care about painting. They just care that it just works. Sometimes. Of course, there are some minor issues that I talked about with regards to the backpack. I really don't like it how during packaging it really got warped, and that you have to do some other special manipulation to get the Tesla coils back into shape. I'm also very disappointed that the backpack does not stay on very securely. I can guarantee you after I'm done with the video, if I actually pick this action figure up in the back, the backpack will definitely fall off. But regardless, let me know what you think about this action figure in the comments section. I'm really curious to see whether you feel as if this action figure embodies all the Orky goodness or not. I'm also curious to see what you would really like to see improved in these action figures. So this is Bruisins Does, and I hope you enjoyed this review video. And as usual, I'll see you all in the next one.